Hello, and welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness. This is Cherie Burton. Super excited for this podcast episode today. I need to also let you know something that's on my heart. This is the day of my sister Shauna's 15-year anniversary death. She died by suicide. She overdosed in a hotel room in Salt Lake City. And for the past 15 years, it's really defined my whole trajectory. And her passing and her life have been a huge influence on my personal mission. Just want to give a shout out to her today and honor her for the woman she is, was, and will become. She is missed. She left a hole in our family that can never be filled until we see her again. And I know that she shows up a lot. You're just in for a real treat today because Cassandra has had several successful businesses. She's what she calls a serial entrepreneur. So there's that aspect of her. But what's really powerful about her is she has lived through immense, severe childhood trauma. She's helped people to leverage what they've walked through in the past and the things that have made them who they are, really, and galvanized who they are, into moving forward on their work in the world. She and I really get into this kind of exchange about leaning into the unknown and really looking at what the gift of this whole pandemic is. And we were talking about it after the recording, but honestly, there has been a pandemic in the world even before this virus showed up, and that is the pandemic of suicide, of people in soul depression who've lost the will to live, who haven't found their spark, or who have been overcome with their own demons and fires and traumas. And that is the saddest thing. But suicide rates eclipse the virus deaths by far. And even being part of this podcast has helped me to realize that every one of us are walking through something super serious and will come out on the other side of it in a beautiful way. I also want to mention that the cart is open for the Fix Your Marriage in 40 Days course that Dimple Thacker and I have put together. Talk about walking through fire and trauma and hell. Definitely what I've learned in my almost 25 years of marriage to my beautiful husband, Jeff, has been fraught with a lot of trials and misunderstanding and breaking old family patterns and all kinds of things. And so I would invite you to go to our new website to find more details. It is loveyourmarriage.love. Loveyourmarriage.love. And now let's turn our attention to Cassandra and her beautiful words of wisdom. How the virus vortex can move you into your true work. Cassandra, oh my gosh. Okay, so our listeners need to know we had this epic recording that we did together. Yes. And in my entire podcasting experience, which is not that vast, but it's a lot of episodes, like over 70 episodes. This has never happened where a file got corrupted. And so I'm thinking to myself, why would the universe destroy that perfect conversation we had? And you and I were just talking about this. There's a reason. So we're going to
100%. There always is. And I remember the last thing we said on the podcast too was, I can't wait to have you back.
Yeah,
so
true.
Because we were talking about coming back in a year after, all said and done with coronavirus. And the universe is like, no, she'll be back like in
She's
a week and a half.
Sooner than you think.
Exactly. So I'm happy to be back.
Oh, well, thank you for your flexibility. And I know it's not an easy time. I mean, here we are, how many weeks into quarantine?
I think we're 5 or 6.
Something like that. You're based in
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay. And I'm in Utah. So yeah, I mean, different areas of the nation and the world have had different time into this, but right now it just feels like forever. I know it's over a month.
Yeah, 100%.
So your expertise is helping people basically find their soul path, really. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about this time, this era that we live in, what's really, things have really gotten interesting even since you and I last talked when we thought we were going to have our last episode air. What do you think this is really about as it relates to like people doing their true work in the world?
Oh my gosh. Again, such a loaded, beautiful question. I feel like, and it's going to sound slightly funny, but I feel like this is the universe or God or source or spirit, whoever you believe in. It's their way of actually pushing so many people towards their fullest potential and like what they're actually meant and supposed to do. I feel like a lot of people, we kind of, and I me myself included, when I was actually in the corporate world, I like had this dream of owning a marketing agency and working for myself and traveling for myself, not for the company that I was working for, but like I had all these kind of pieces. And I feel like I'm obviously not the only one who was stuck in kind of a corporate monotony and had these kind of wants and desires. So I feel like this is, again, universe, spirit, source, God, whomever, pick your happy word.
It's a big universe. Yeah.
It 100%. But like, I feel like it's them telling us to essentially, shit or get off the pot.
Yeah. My mom used to say that all the time.
So
and
did my mom. Exactly. So did mine. I'm like, but I feel like honestly,
well, don't you think Mother Earth is saying that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Mama Earth right now is going through like, I mean, just some of the things of like that are so beautiful that are happening. Like Mama Earth is healing some deep, deep, deep stuff, both on a personal and then like on a global level too.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure she's propelling us all in the right directions, as she always does.
Well, and there's a natural order to things which manifests in the natural world. And some of it, I mean, we just have to move with it. We can't,
Yes.
I mean, and nature does this anyway, right? We can't control it. We move with it. So my bigger question in this is, how will we rise? What will have shifted? What do you see? Because you work with a lot of soul-based entrepreneurs. You've been very successful in business. I mean, how do we lean into this evolution from an entrepreneurial standpoint?
Yeah. So from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I feel like right now what we're going through is a trauma. Whether it's, it's however someone identifies trauma is completely up to them. But what we're going through is highly, highly traumatic. And really where I help and where I specialize and what I do for work and really where I came from is helping people leverage trauma into personal power. And I feel like if you've had the most perfect idyllic life up until this point, this may be the hardest thing you're facing. And it may be something that actually pushes you so far out of your comfort zone to start getting in line with and in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think too, and you and I know we explored this before. It's moving from and I've been talking about this for years. You probably have too, from the masculine paradigm, the unhealthy masculine paradigm of go, 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 achieve, 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 bust it out, kill it, get ahead, rank, recognition, all that achievement stuff into
hierarchy, patriarchy.
Yeah, all of that into this new feminine, growth-oriented, expansive, nuanced, intuitive way of being.
And it's funny because I feel like going back to what we just said a couple minutes ago, the people who are in this stage of resisting this new way of being are just not accustomed to being in flow. And I mean, to be honest with you, for the first couple weeks while this was all going on, I was like, what the hell is this? But I have a very strong masculine based energy just with the work that I do and with, being a serial entrepreneur. Granted, I work with females, but I'm the go-to girl to get things done, which is a very masculine kind of piece of my identity that I hold on to. So I was realizing as we're kind of going into this expansion and then this kind of vortex swirl ascension, like coronavirus ascension process, like is exactly like, I think on the last podcast, I described it to you and I've been describing it like this to everyone is every day feels like it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like 3 weeks of changes, updates, whatever's going on in the media.
I can't keep up. I cannot.
I can't. I've been like, I swear I've been to like a space shop and people are like, I messaged you. I'm like, oh, I haven't looked at that platform. Like,
well, it's like a conspiracy theorist, like candy store.
Oh, 100%.
Like, that's why I'm like, I can't even like, there's too many, doomsday scenarios. And, for me, it's like, what's the new commodity?
Yes.
It's how do we move our gifts, talents, skill sets? Skill sets kind of still sounds masculine, but it's like, what have you walked through that has rendered you an expert in some domain? Like, you're really good at, I'm just going to put this like gardening, or you're really good at, I'm not really good at this, but some people really are good at like homeschooling their kids, you know?
Yes, not me.
No, not me. That's become real apparent in the last month.
No, but that's actually a conversation I've had more often than not with my entrepreneurs who are kind of diving in and out of this fear cycle, which is, self-perpetuating. Is that like, if the world were to, kind of go down this dark path, and if everything were to change, and if, your med spa or your health coaching business or your fill in the blank was to completely change and shift and pivot, I'm like, you by nature are innovative being an entrepreneur. Like, you have already done the process of birthing something into the world. I'm like, that's where I've used the example. I'm like, are you an amazing gardener? Could you garden and barter? Can you bake bread? Can you knit? Like, tell me what your skill set is. And like, we'll figure out a new kind of way and path.
Yeah.
And like, versus kind of staying in this, like, woe is me kind of victim mentality. Like, this is happening at such a massive global level.
Right.
Where like, it's not just, and that's one of the things from a trauma perspective is so often we feel isolated in our trauma because it's only happened to us. No one else understands it. Everyone from every corner of the earth is actually going through, and it's stretching and molding and manipulating.
Oh yeah. It's hit critical mass. There's never, since I guess the last World War, I don't even know, had something hit critical mass. And there were even some corners of the globe that some of the world wars never impacted. This has.
Exactly. There's nothing within our lifetime that has happened. That's one of the things that I've been explaining to a lot of the women I work with. You're like, I can't figure out what to do. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, you have never lived through a global pandemic. I was like, have you? Because I know I haven't in my, 30 plus years or 35 years on the earth. But I'm like, have you? And they're like, no, we haven't. I was like, then give yourself just a spoonful of grace too, because this is new for everyone.
Yeah. And to not go to fear, I think there's kind of these two camps, and I don't want to polarize it and reduce it to this, but really, I mean, Course in Miracles talks about this. There's only two ways of being: love and fear.
Yes.
Connection and separation. It's just really that simple. So with that, how do you not, with something like a pandemic hitting, not go into a fear response, but go into more of that creation response, which is what can I do with not, and it's not male centric, unhealthy masculine achievement paradigm, but what do I need to do? But there are genuinely some people who are totally out of their, what they knew and did in the past, their job, their livelihood, so how do you bridge that for someone?
Well, first I want to say, I love that you brought in A Course in Miracles, because there is I'm going to paraphrase, because one of my mentors always does. And she says, and there's a line in there, and it says, basically, if you knew who walked alongside you, you would not have fear. So one of the things that I thought that's really, really interesting, that actually has happened since between, last time we recorded this and now, which is only 2 weeks, 225% increase in Bible sales.
Interesting.
I've read this article and I was like, that's insane. And it's from individuals. It's not from churches.
I wonder if some people are like, okay, are we going into the apocalypse? Because I better catch up on my
So honestly, I feel like that's what it is. And I feel like it's, again, this rebirth of, and that's what I'm seeing as well, is things that actually really matter to people. Mm-hmm. Which is, it is a heavy tie into religion, to higher self, to higher source, to family. One of the things that has been so beautiful as well is like looking outside and watching, families connect with kids outside and playing with sidewalk chalk, and just like seeing the real beauty of what's going on amongst the trauma and chaos.
And that actually drives even further forward. What I was trying to say is that while there is so much more connectedness and going to the heart of things, there's also this other, like families together and stuff. In my county, there has been a 75% increase in domestic violence 911 calls.
Yeah.
So you see that too.
Yeah, you're seeing the polarity at such a high level.
Yeah.
Right now. And I feel like, considering we are in this kind of, again, vortex swirl is what I kind of label it as, you get to see both. You get to see people who are turning to, I mean, alcohol, I'm telling you, Bible sales were up, but alcohol sales were up. And I think it was like tequila was like the number one bestseller or something like that. So like
Wow.
you get to see that polarity of what people are, where people are going.
Right. I think somebody had told me, I think it was Costa Rica. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica to do a whole week of plant medicine journey and just a really deep healing kind
Yeah,
of thing.
I was supposed to be in Peru.
Oh, really? I'm
Yes.
like, dang. But anyway, they told me that they're in Costa Rica that they banned all alcohol sales for a time. And it's like,
Interesting.
if you were an alcoholic before this, can you imagine? Like, because it's just showing all of us like the things that you had access to before are shifting. And
Yes.
all of and going back to the Bible, when Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven doesn't come by observation, it's within. The kingdom of God is within you.
Mm-hmm.
Taking the fires we've walked through, the traumas, whatever we've engaged, that's engaged our soul in this growth. Now we get to go and take that and go, okay, here's what I've inherited, and here's what I've been given, and here's what I've walked through.
Yeah, and
How
I
do
feel.
I, yeah. How
Oh,
do
go
I
ahead.
do that?
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, how do I take all of that and how do I help heal the planet now? Because this is the invitation.
Yeah, so I feel like what's coming up for a lot of people, and what as you're kind of talking through that, is also we're seeing that within ourselves. So we're also seeing at such a high magnitude what's important to us and where we may have dropped the ball, so to speak. So
Mhm.
one of the things that I'm having a lot of my clients do right now is actually deep and intentional shadow work, because I'm
Mm,
like, these things are coming up. So as they're coming to the surface, we might as well work with them
yeah.
because they're prevalent, and they're prevalent
They're
all across the
amplified.
board. 100, everything is amplified
Yeah.
right now. And like under a microscope to the fullest extent.
Hmm. Hmm. And you are with you more than you typically would be. And
Exactly.
that's the shadow work is where's the unhealed and unprocessed trauma? Where am I showing up in ego? And how does it look to move through this? Um, because you've worked with shamans, and I did a whole podcast on what is a modern day shaman and what does that look like and what is it? And honestly, anyone who's all about helping people heal is in some way, shape, or form a shaman.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, a native healer who's in traditional dress who's shaking a stick.
Exactly. Who's chanting around a fire?
Right, right,
Even though
right.
that does happen.
It does happen, and I'm not ruling it out as a very valid way of, So if you had someone just standing right in front of you and she's just like, okay, I'm feeling something. I know there's something around the corner. I know that I need to do away with my old corporate job or my clock in, clock out thing. Where do I start? What's the first step?
Yeah. So one of the exercises that I do with almost every client at some level, and it's not a super sexy exercise, is literally figuring out personal and professional values. So honestly, I have someone take a piece of regular printer paper and draw two giant circles and do an old school Venn diagram. And then we start figuring out from a personal and from a professional level where things intersect.
Mm,
Because what I love in this space is I can create a super profitable business for you, but if it does not tie to something you are wildly passionate about, you're going to want to quit your business,
mm,
even though it's yours. And I feel like I've gotten to that level in some of mine. And I've had a ton of clients that came to me who are like, if you look on paper, they have a 7+ figure business. They have employees, they have benefits, they have kind of like they have the thing that they wanted, but
mm,
they're like, I want to quit. And that's when we actually kind of do the deep excavation work as to like why it was built and why it wasn't connected to you. So if it was someone who actually didn't have that I had to kind of, pull the pieces apart, and then we were just starting from scratch, that would actually be one of the pieces that we start with first.
mm. Beautiful. I think,
Which it
yeah,
sounds so simple, but I'm like, but it's so often forgotten.
yeah. I think for me, when this pandemic hasn't really affected my work, it's actually made it expand quite a bit because, um, and I know you would agree with this, like your true work in the world is like economic proof.
Yes.
or economy collapsing proof.
Recession proof.
Yeah,
Yes.
recession proof. So it's not just a commodity. It's not just something that you trade dollars for dollars or hours for hours. It's like you could do this without making money. You just love it so much. But
And that's one of
when,
the things, that's one of the pieces that has been amplified for me too, is I am a serial entrepreneur. I do have 3 businesses of my own, and then I have quite a few others that I'm invested in. And the business that I knew I was not meant to do for the long term, but couldn't figure out my way out, it's tanking. There's no other way to put it. It's just collapsing month over month, which is great because I am able to see a way out now. But it's also kind of poetic that the universe and God and source is doing things that you can't even do for yourself right now.
yes,
Because I'm like, I'm a high performance business coach. I can strategize with the best of them. But I'm like, I didn't see a way out of this business. And now it's actually being given to me as a gift while my coaching is being elevated.
that natural selection process is so powerful. It's just about trusting God and what's like his plan. And I would also add to that, her plan for your life.
Yes.
So there's a quote I love, and I've probably said it on the podcast before, but God calls you to the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I
like,
love that.
if you really love it and it lights you up, the world needs it in some way, shape, or form.
But I do want to I want to actually put a little asterisk on your quote if you don't mind.
Yeah, do go for it.
Because I feel like a lot of times when people say that, like, oh, it's my calling, they automatically assume like red carpet is going to roll out. They're going to look in their bank the next day. There's going to be $1.3 million. Like, it's not exactly. I just want to put that little clarifying fact. Like, if you know it's your calling, it's because it gets louder and louder and louder, and not because it comes easy.
Yeah. Until you say yes to it, it will come cloaked to you in many forms. And some of it's not pretty. In fact,
100%.
I would say, because I have a thing on my website, your message, your message.
Yes.
And in saying that, creation in and of itself is very messy. Birth is messy. And even
I was just going to say birth.
Birth is the first thing, because I know you're a mother, but also any project that you commence on that is going to have some real merit in the world, the pendulum will move and shift and break stuff, and a wrecking ball can happen. And that doesn't mean that that isn't the right thing to do. Because I'm glad you brought this up, because when I do business mentoring, and even in the business that I run in doTERRA, is very, I'll mentor some people who are they're feeling it, they want to do it. And then they come back to me and they say, it's just not lining up. It's just not, there's too much resistance. And so we really look at that resistance, and it's like, go with your own resonation. If you have resonation with this, it's you and God, and it's your work. It's not attached to even your children or your husband. And I know for some women that sounds like I'm talking heresy.
Exactly.
Because we've been programmed to think that our needs and our work actually needs to come secondary to all of our other roles. And I think there's a way to do both. I don't think that your life's work and your motherhood should be separate. I think they're one thing. If you have that desire, I meet a lot of women who literally have no desire. They just are fine with their, the family dynamics the way they are, and staying and being a mother. So I'm not trying to downplay that whatsoever.
And I feel like for me, especially, which is probably true for the women you coach and work with as well, it's legacy building work. It's not necessarily for a family or for a child, but it's that legacy that they want to leave behind. Mm-hmm. Be it I have one woman who wants to leave it to her dog. More power to her. But it still ties to a legacy piece and having a namesake piece, which I think so many women actually value.
I think one of the things that impresses me about you, and this came up in our last discussion that I'm hoping gets resurrected by Zoom. Please, Zoom, please resurrect that episode. But even if they don't, it's cool. But you had just cracked me up, because you had said you trust your own resourcefulness to such a degree that, if we were in some kind of complete economic meltdown, that you would be able, because you had, what did you say? It was so funny. You're like, I'll melt down or I'll crush up. What did you say? It was some
I don't even
kind of product that you had, that you know that you would use that for like a fire starter if you had to.
Oh, I think I was talking about the cookie company because I was like, I think I have 120 pounds of oats in the house and 80 pounds of flour. I was like, I'll go ahead and make some bread if I need to and sell the bread from my front porch. I think
Yeah,
that's where
because
I
you
was
just
going with
know,
that. I was like, oh,
I love it. I love it.
it's
It's
like,
inspiring.
well, I mean, also, I feel like a lot of us have been through some really, really hard things. And if you actually look and kind of dissect back at your life of what you've actually overcome and accomplished, nothing being thrown your way will actually hold you down and will actually create a stopping block for you. So,
Mm.
like, for me, I overcame physical, mental, sexual abuse from age 5 through 15, all growing up, dropping out of high school, moving out of my parents' house, living in the most asbestos filled, awful apartment known to man in Boston, going to
Mm.
college, living out of my car, getting married at 8. Like I have this badass list of this things that I've accomplished
Mm.
so that I kind of look where I'm like, there's nothing that like honestly could throw me off my track of what I'm supposed to be doing that I
Mhm.
haven't already overcome something harder.
Yes, you're a warrior, you're a survivor. All of us have that survival instinct that, I mean, if you're alive right now, you're a survivor in some way.
100%. And it's funny because I feel like a lot of the people who I talk to, they're like, yeah, but I didn't have as hard of a life from you. I'm like, it doesn't matter. I was like, my trauma is not to be compared with your trauma, is not to be compared with, your neighbors.
Right.
Everyone carries their own torch of what they've overcome. And that when we truly tap into that innate inner power, that's
Mhm.
where things become unlocked.
Right.
That's where you're like, it's okay. I'll just grind up oats and make bread. And like, we'll be good. Like we will always be good. It might not be ideal. I might not be living the way that I want to live, but it's for a season, it's for a phase, and I can survive.
Yeah. And I think what's evolving right now is the other side of it. And even the
Mm-hmm.
journey of it is quite exciting. It's an adventure.
It is an adventure. And
Let me
it's funny
ask you
because,
this. Oh, go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, finish your thought. It's fine. I'll come.
No. So what I was going to say too, like, I feel like me being I'm going to speak for myself, but I'm sure there's some listeners who are going to completely resonate with this. Like, I am a type A female. I am used to planning the entire month in advance. I know what dinners are going to happen. I know where I'm going to be. I know like it's all highly orchestrated. And this is one of the first kind of times in my life, honestly, for a really long time where I've had to step back and also kind of just experience days as they come and
Mhm.
actually truly lean into that flow piece and that more feminine kind of desire.
Yeah. Well, okay. I totally resonate with that too. Okay. So tell me, how does someone's work call them? Like, what would that look, how does that happen? What does that look like for your work to call you? It's not the other way around. Like your work calls you. You don't always
Mhm.
call it in.
Yeah, so I feel like kind of that goes back to what we were saying, where you'll start hearing the messages of, I call it intuition. You'll start getting those intuitive hits of like, you should go do this, or you should birth this. Or for me, honestly, it's you should write a book. You really need to write a book. You should just open a Word document and start writing. Maybe take that journal page and turn it into a book. Like I would get those messages pretty consistently and pretty constantly, even though I'm like, no, I don't need to write a book. No, I don't want to tell that story. No, that's not going to help anyone. So
Mhm.
honestly, I feel like from my perspective, my work would continue to show up till I actually started making momentum in what it is I knew I at the depth of my heart what I was supposed to be doing.
Mm. Yeah, because isn't it just this whole dance of things rising and falling in and out of our lives? And like a book shows up, a training shows up, somebody says something in passing, and it just has this like energetic zing for you.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, why is this impacting me like this? And then you can't stop thinking about it. And then it keeps you up awake at night. I always tell people keep like a journal with you at all times. Keep something with you where you can write things down at all times. Um,
Mine is the
because,
notes app in my phone. That's my little hack.
oh, nice.
I think last time I checked, it was like 2,800 notes to myself. And it's
Mm,
just like when something comes through, if I don't write it down, or if like it might be an idea for a post for me, or it might be a new product, or it might be a different way to message something. But like I'm constantly tuning in, especially when you actually start getting quiet. And I'm a huge fan of morning routines and quiet time. That's where a lot of my messages come in.
mm,
And honestly, that's for me is where I'll sit there and like jot down what I'm supposed to do today, or what needs to be done, or what's calling me, or where my energy needs to go. But I have, like I said, way too many notes, and I'll just jot them down. And sometimes one of the things I just resurrected was from 2009.
wow.
So you're able to kind of look back on it and say, okay, cool. Here, you're also able to see the journey and the progress of where you've gone to, but you're also able to revisit something that, it may have had the right idea to actually, you may have gotten the message in 2009, and it might be the right time to now kind of birth.
Absolutely. Yeah. There is just this things will resurface. I can go back, yeah, and read my old stuff and go, I knew something was coming. Like I could
Mm-hmm.
feel it. And I just didn't know it would be this thing.
And a lot of times it takes a long time to birth. It
Yeah.
really does. Like I was talking to one of my clients the other day, I said about the gestational period of one of her programs. I was like, it's not done yet because you still haven't, handled X, Y, and Z. I
Right.
said, so there's still a chapter, there's still a lesson that you get to learn, not have to learn, that you get to learn, that you can teach other people,
Mm, powerful.
which is amazing.
Yes. So we're kind of entering this evolutionary era, just to kind of like wrap everything up, of a rebirth, really. And
Yes.
so let's kind of summarize this with, let's say you're answering the call, you have this desire, you're open to what's showing up. Um, what do you think is this? What's the real outgrowth of this? Like, what is this evolution really bringing us to? I mean, we probably talked about it at the beginning, but I mean, like, really for the individual and the collective, what is this about?
Honestly, for me, and I think this is where we kind of went last podcast as well, is it's coming back home to like who you were meant to be and who you truly are. And from my perspective, I've done a lot of different healing modalities and mechanisms and had a lot of mentors and in all different realms and modalities. But honestly, one of the things that reigns true for me is we are on this like planetary shift of soul retrieval, of taking all of those fragments, those pieces, those parts of us that which ties into the shadow self, those parts that we haven't healed, those parts that we don't want to talk about, and actually bringing them all home.
Hmm. So it's kind of about wholeness.
100% about wholeness. I mean, yes, this is literally, this time is meant for your podcast.
So, women, if you're seeking wholeness, well, here it comes, like in the form of a planetary crisis. I
Well, I
love
feel
it.
like too, it's being, I don't want to say forced because that's not the word, but like there's not a lot of other options right
You
now.
can't escape it.
You can't escape it. Exactly. So like you have to kind of go with the flow, and it's going to be really interesting to see, honestly, for me, what comes out of all of this and where the chips fall, if you may, after all is said and done.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really excited for it, to be honest with you.
I know. I'm kind of like, bring it on. I mean, of course, there's always going to be that, because this is polarity and we're trying to come back into unity consciousness, where we've been in this like really dogmatic black, white, right, wrong, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And now we're moving into like this more like, why can't we all just be one? So you're seeing the pronounced like political uprisings and just all this polarization. And for me, it feels like, okay, we're coming out of polarity into
What I
that
also think
oneness.
is super interesting, and I don't know how much you're into this, but I actually just started reading up on it. Is we're also in the Aquarian age right now,
Yes.
where the patriarchy should have been shut, or should have started to lovingly fizzle in like I think it was early 2000s. I think it was 2002 if I'm getting the date correct. But it's honestly interesting. I was reading an article from a high up healer, and she was saying that considering we haven't started to work on ourselves to get to us to the next phase and the next level of what life is going to look like, essentially this is Mama Nature, God, whomever, again, taking it into their own hands and actually making us do the damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm paraphrasing, of course. I'm pretty sure she
Well,
didn't say do the damn thing, but you know what I
yeah,
mean?
I know what you mean. I think I was listening to someone with a very similar message just this morning, and it was like, "Hey, we knew something was going to have to happen. We couldn't keep going this way.
Exactly.
It's something. There needed to be an absolute shakeup." And so, I mean, even if all the professionals and health officials and everything came out tomorrow, and they're like, "Okay, no more social distancing. We found the antidote. We got this, we got that." And even if that was just like lock, stock, and barrel done from our higher ups, I think that we would still leave this experience going, "Oh, you know, really, there is always vulnerability and volatility in my external world. How do I bring a sense of certainty and my own divine connection and my own place on the planet? Like, how do I really make that solid and really get clear on who I am and what I'm bringing to the table?" I think too, and maybe we can wrap up with this. Like, we know there's things we've outgrown. Um, we know that a lot of us, well, I don't know. I mean, I meet a lot of women who are like, "I'm not doing what I love to do." And I'm like, "Well, then do what you love to do." I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds so simple.
And we both know it's not, because we've both gone through our own transitions where,
Yes.
like, I know what I want to do. And then I'm like, but the money, but the company car, but the 401k, but
Yeah.
the health insurance,
Right.
but the, like, we can think of a million and one excuses to not do the thing we're feeling called to do.
Right.
And
And
that's just, the actual tangible excuses, let alone from an empath perspective about, but my story also involves so and so and so and so and so and so.
yeah, we're not saying don't be responsible, and we're not saying put your family second. That's not what we're saying.
No.
We're saying uh just start. Just and I tell people this a lot. Like, don't let your kids be the reason you don't show up. Don't put that on them. They don't want a mom who's not doing her work and loving what she does, whatever it is, whether it's from home or not. I think the deeper yes that we're saying, or the deeper calling we're answering to, is to be love, to show love and receive love. And with that is the soul expression. Like, your work is in there somewhere with that. It's you love
100%.
it. You love it. It is love to you. Like, you would do it all day, every day. Like, even doing the podcast, I'm like, I lose track of time. Like, I love it. You know, when you're doing something that you love, it's not a linear work. It's not, it,
Well, you're no longer trading dollars for hours and time,
yeah.
which I feel like is what we're so used to doing, especially in the pre-COVID-19 worlds.
Mhm.
That was exceptionally amplified, is we're used to saying, okay, this is my hourly wage. If I punch in 40 hours, this is what I get out of it. And when you're actually following that true heart calling, soul purpose, soul calling, like, desire,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. Like, you do lose track of time. There are times, like, I remember when I used to, like, design, actually for my marketing agency, I was the one who was designing websites, and I'd be like sitting in front of the computer for 14 hours, completely in love with
Mhm.
the work that I'm doing. But, like, it's not, I was no longer a slave to that punch in, punch out
Right.
time clock.
Right. And we are not saying, like, if you're not drawn to being an entrepreneur, it's probably not for you. But if you are, then you see that it's like a divine desire implanted in your heart. If everyone was an entrepreneur, I don't know what kind of world it would be,
Well,
because
I
we
also
still
feel
need
like this,
all services
this,
at all levels, right?
well, this still also applies to people who work in corporate and who work for other people who just might not be in alignment and in the correct job with their soul's calling. I truly, truly believe that, there is a calling placed on people to work in certain areas, and they might not be in those areas too. So, like, it might not be an entrepreneurial thing for some people. That's just my lens with the space that I'm in.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Well, Cassandra, this has just been um, such a great energy to this discussion. It feels like we got really laser on this. We did have a dress rehearsal before this in the form of another episode we recorded. So
we did, which I'm still putting the intention out to Zoom for them to resurrect that, because that podcast, just for the listeners, was recorded pre-Easter too. So I think we ended on Mary Magdalene and resurrection.
We totally did.
I know. It was good,
we
but it was
went
all over
every direction. I was like, okay, well, it'll be interesting how we tie all this together. But it really, cool is that soul retrieval that you were talking about.
Yeah. And it's funny because the really comical part of it all is I never listen to podcasts that I do after. I don't like listening to myself talk. It's just it's a thing with me. And I was like, wow, I really need to listen to that one back. So,
well, here you go. And
exactly. Thanks, universe.
Thanks, universe. And actually, to go deeper with this podcast episode will air on the 15-year anniversary of my sister Shauna's death, who died by suicide, and I will preface this in the intro. So this might be another repeat of what I say previous, but this is a sister who left behind 5 children who ranged in age from 2 to 12. She and I were 2 years apart in age. She was a brilliant musician, just a love of a person, loved everybody, never judged people. And I'd say this a lot because she was a musician, but her music died inside of her because she didn't know who she was. She didn't understand her true worth and power. And she completely downplayed her space on this planet all the time. And so I just wanted to add that because maybe that's one of the reasons that this episode needed to air when it did air, because it will air actually on the 15-year anniversary of her death.
And what day? That's May 14th, right?
No, April 29th.
Okay, April 29th. Okay.
Yes, April 29th.
Okay.
So what a 15-year journey it has been since we lost her. I'm 51 now. I was 36 when she died, and she was 34. And we lived about 1 minute from each other. Our children were the same ages. And like I said, her kids ranged in age from age 2 to age 12. And they're now, add 15 years to that. So her youngest is 17, oldest is 26, I think. It's just been, it's been, I would have not 15 years ago been able to talk about shamans and soul retrieval and ascension patterns and, and I'm only bringing this up because the polarity that she felt she was literally bipolar. So the polarity she felt within herself, of being either she's horrible or she's amazing. There was no in between. And I think as I've moved more into a nuanced set of beliefs myself in terms of everyone's okay. Everyone is love. Everyone's on the same plane. Everyone's going to make it. I didn't have that paradigm back then. And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit because we are all, like I said, carrying trauma. We're all doing the best we can. And we're all going to be okay. This is all going to be okay. Whatever is happening in the universe, in our world, and in our homes, and in our bodies, going to heal. We're on the path to that.
No, absolutely. And one of the things that just came through that as you were kind of talking about your sister, is my mom was actually also bipolar. And when I was 15 years old, right before I had moved out, I remember finding her suicide note because she had planned out a suicide. She didn't end up going through with it, but that just hits so close to home based on kind of my childhood, based on reading this note from a mom who was, again, living in that polarity sense and having, for her, it was a big piece of identity. She had always put her kids in the identity, and with my father, with his abuse situation and his drug issues, it was always such a part of her identity where she didn't even have or know who she was.
Mm. I feel like that is the most tragic, sad thing ever.
Hmm.
Someone, everyone else can see their beauty, worth, and power and gifts, but they just can't see it in themselves.
And that honestly has been such a part of my journey, that like where I know when I'm actually able to coach a woman and reflect back exactly what the entire world sees about her, and to turn that into something that's monetizing and giving her like abundance and life force. I
Mm.
mean, it all ties so beautifully. Like I have chills right now.
Me too.
So
I'm sure my sister just showed up because she does that sometimes.
no, she's with us.
She's like, here I am. Well, thank you. Please tell us, Cassandra, where we can find your offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. So CassandraShuck.com is my all things internet hub. It's CassandraShuck.com. And there's links to my podcast, Stacked Against, on the website. There's links to all of my social media. There's links to offerings, bio, more about my story, a little bit of everything on there. But that's my internet hub.
Fantastic. And I know your brilliance is helping people take what they love and making it their life work and being able to create income from that if that's their desire. So I would really encourage our listeners to check out your offerings. And thank you so much again. It's been a joy, as always, to connect with you.
Yes, thank you for having me again.
I think as we move out of subscribing to everyone else's success pattern, right, and we just forge our own and be ourselves, it's just kind of the MO I have with this podcast, to feel, express, and be who you truly are, because that is what your soul is longing for. For me, that feels like the best way to retrieve all the fragmented parts of who you are and come back into wholeness. So this planetary shift that's happening is a great invitation to move forward and be who you are and do what you love, because the world needs it.